All right, I know all you're really here to find out is how the Feelworld L1 compares to the ATEM Mini, so let's just get right to it. This is not going to be a detailed overview of the ATEM Mini or the Livepro L1. Instead, I'm going to focus on just the differences between the two. I want to better help you make a decision about which one is the best for you. I do also need to say that Feelworld sent this to me to review. However, they're not paying me for the review and they don't get any input into what I say in this video. So everything in this video is my honest opinion, and I'm really just here to help you make an informed decision about what you are thinking about buying. So what we're going to focus on in this video is specifically the differences between the Livepro L1 and the ATEM Mini. And I do want to clarify that I'm only going to be comparing this to the base model of the ATEM Mini, not the Pro or the ISO. And that's because the original ATEM Mini is about the same price as the L1. The L1 retails for $299 and the ATEM Mini is $295. Now the Pro is $595 and the ISO is $895, which are both significantly more expensive than $300, and they are in a totally different category because of that. So if you need a device with the features of the Pro, mainly the ability to live stream directly from that device and record to a USB drive, then you should absolutely get the Pro or the ISO because there is still nothing even remotely close at that price point. So back to the original ATEM Mini, because this is where things get interesting. When the ATEM Mini launched, it shook up the world of video switchers by packing a 4-input HDMI switcher that's also a USB capture device into a package costing only $300. Before that launched, the options available were at least twice the cost, and often were missing one or more features of the ATEM Mini. There was the Roland V1 HD, which is 2 inputs for $600, the Sling Studio at $1,000, which is actually more comparable to the YOLO box, and the cheapest ATEM switcher was the $1,000 ATEM Television Studio HD. So launching an extremely featureful 4-input switcher at $300 was unheard of, and it's been fascinating watching companies adapt to this and catch up. And that takes us to the Feelworld L1. Let's first take a look at the features that both the L1 and the ATEM Mini have in common. Both devices have 4 HDMI inputs and 1 HDMI output. Both have a USB port and can act as a USB capture device when plugged into a computer. That means you can use the switcher to change between 4 different cameras, or a camera and a game console, and it all appears to the computer as a single webcam. Both devices can be plugged into a network and controlled from apps on a computer or a smartphone. If you would like to learn more about other ways you can use these kinds of devices, I'll leave a link to some of my other videos up there and down there that talk about ways you can use the ATEM Mini. Both devices can handle a variety of inputs at different resolutions and frame rates, and it scales it all to the same resolution in the output. And this is actually one of the features that was first added in the ATEM Mini line. Even the larger ATEMs don't have this feature. So it's really great to see that in the L1 also. They both have some simple transition effects like wipes and slides, so you can get a little bit fancier than just straight cuts. They both have an audio input, and they're both about the same size. Neither of them can stream from the device itself. You're going to need to connect a computer via USB and stream with something like OBS, or you can use it in Zoom or other video conferencing apps, or you can use a dedicated separate HDMI streaming encoder externally. Now this is about where the similarities end, so let's focus now on the differences. Let's start by talking about how you can control the two devices. The control surface on the top is very different between the two. The ATEM Mini has a whole bunch of buttons, honestly probably too many buttons, and most of them actually control the audio. The L1 has just a few buttons on the top for controlling video, and notably has this large T-bar for fading between shots instead of the cut and auto buttons on the ATEM Mini. The L1 also has these knobs at the top which pull up the menu that is shown on the little screen. That menu is how you can change all the settings like choosing your audio settings and configuring the network. The L1 is really meant to be completely controlled from the device itself with all the menu options available in the screen. The ATEM, on the other hand, really requires connecting it to a computer to take full advantage of all the features. Despite there being a bunch of buttons at the top, they're actually pretty limited in what they can do, and you will very likely want to connect it to a computer pretty quick after getting it. Let's move on to the inputs. So both have 4 HDMI inputs, and both can handle a variety of resolutions and frame rates, although neither can do 4K. The ATEM Mini has 2 analog audio input jacks, and the L1 has just a single audio input. However, one of the big differences between the HDMI inputs of the L1 is that you can plug in HDCP devices directly into the L1. And as you probably know if you watch my live streams, I use a Chromecast to share the chat messages into the ATEM, but I have to plug it into an HDMI splitter first. With the L1, you can plug in a Chromecast device directly, and it just works. One place where the ATEM Mini is the clear winner here is with the audio processing options. The L1 has very limited options here. You can basically choose between either embedded or external audio, which means the audio will come from the active HDMI camera in embedded mode, or only from the audio jack in external mode. The ATEM Mini, on the other hand, is basically a full audio mixer as well. With the ATEM Mini, you can enable audio separately from the video channels, changing the volume of each, and if you open up the software control app, you get even more features like using a compressor and expander, and you're able to really adjust the audio to be just how you want it, including EQ adjustments. There's even a built-in audio delay feature so that you can better match up your external microphone inputs with your HDMI cameras. It really is like having a whole audio mixer built into the ATEM Mini. So with the L1, you'll probably want to assume that you'll be running your audio through an external mixer, feeding it into the analog input here. So before I tell you about the most exciting difference between the two, if you've been enjoying this video so far, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you aren't already. It really helps out the channel and it lets me know that you appreciate this kind of content. So the most exciting difference between the ATEM Mini and the L1 is that the L1 does in fact have multi-view, so you can see all your cameras at the same time. The major limitation of the ATEM Mini, and one of the reasons to spend the extra on the ATEM Mini Pro, is to get the multi-view feature on the Pro that lets you see all your cameras on the screen at the same time. The original ATEM Mini doesn't have this feature at all. The L1, on the other hand, has some pretty cool multi-view features. First of all, it has this little built-in screen showing each of the 4 inputs. Now you might think that it's not super useful to have such a tiny little preview, but it does give you just enough of an idea about what's in each input. You're not going to frame your shots with that or check your focus, but it is enough to double check that your camera is still on or to make sure your computer screen is plugged in. The other huge difference between the two is the L1 can also output the multi-view over HDMI. And it can even output multi-view over the USB connection to a computer. Now, the base ATEM Mini doesn't have any sort of multi-view, and the Pro and the ISO have multi-view on the HDMI output, but not on the USB output. So with the L1, this means you can connect a computer over USB and use your computer monitor as a multi-view if you want to use the HDMI for streaming out to a hardware encoder. Everyone keeps asking for this feature in the ATEM Mini line, so it's great to see that the L1 is including it by default. I will say the one weird thing about the multi-view is that for some reason it stretches the picture if you send it a 1920 by 1080 signal. You might notice that I look a little bit stretched out in the tiny screen here, as well as the HDMI multi-view out. I don't really understand why it works that way. It's a little bit distracting, but I guess it's not a huge deal. It is just nice to have multi-view at all, especially on this little screen here. So if you already have the ATEM Mini, should you upgrade to this instead? I would say probably not. I don't think there's actually enough new features in the L1 that you get if you already have the ATEM Mini. The main thing the L1 has over the ATEM Mini is the multi-view, especially the built-in one. So if you've already bought the Mini and are thinking about spending another $300, then I would actually probably sell the ATEM Mini and get the $600 ATEM Mini Pro instead. But if you are just buying one of these for the first time, definitely consider the major differences between the two to figure out which one makes the most sense for you. I would say the main differences are that the L1 has really good multi-view options with the built-in screen as well as the HDMI multi-view, as well as USB multi-view, while the ATEM Mini has much better audio processing. The other differences are pretty minor, and some of them are just personal preferences as to which way you like to work. So if you are thinking about buying either of these, I would appreciate if you would use my affiliate links in the description below. Purchasing from those links doesn't cost you anything extra, and it really helps out this channel. And again, thanks to Feelworld for sending this out to me to review. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.